off by saying, in general, I don't like these sorts of questions.
No.
The reason I don't like them, sometimes they're okay, sometimes they're not. The reason I don't like them is that often it's nothing to do with your skills or your experience or anything like that. It has just everything to do with the ego of the interviewer, you know. So, unless there's a reason for answering the question, I will tend to get confrontation. Well, not confrontational. Should we say adversarial about questions like that? Okay. Now, I'm not going to suggest that you do this blindly. And you can't. I kind of need to respect the idea that not everyone's interview style is like this. Okay, so you may not favour it. So please take it. Take the idea and do it your way. And if the situation is different, then do it in a way that makes sense to you. Okay. So the first thing I want to understand here is, why are they asking the question, and how relevant is it to examining my skills for their job? Okay. So I'm actually going to start by asking them that directly. You know, what is your purpose behind asking me this question? If it is, if they turn around and say, well, I want to examine your sales skills, depending on what on the job that you're going for, that may or it may not be relevant. Look, here's the thing. Let's say if you are going for a job with as a consultative, in terms of consultative selling of a large, complex, service-based solution. Okay, how you sell a pen is not what it has absolutely no relevance to that. Yeah. So what I would do if that was the situation is go, well, ask them why they're asking the question. If they say they want to examine their sales skills, I'm immediately going to go back and say, well, let me demonstrate that by showing you how I would sell the kind of products that you're selling, and then take them through that sales process. Okay, because that is immediately more relevant to examining your skills. I don't kind of know what other sort of answers they can give that are realistic. If they turn around and say, well, I want to examine your communication skills or anything that's not relevant to selling, and I go, I'm quite happy to say, well, I am talking to you, you know, and and I accept not everyone is likely to be as abrasive as me with this, but I mean, certainly I would turn around and say, look, if you want to examine my communication skills, then ask me more relevant, intelligent questions.
Yeah.
You know, and then I'd give them a shot of intelligent, relevant questions that I've already got really good answers to. You know, So that's my kind of approach to this. The reality, though, is if you are, I don't know, going into selling commodity products and you're expected to turn around to people and I don't know, sell them mugs, cups, and baseball caps or whatever else, then actually it is a relevant question. And again, my answer to this is that if those are the sorts of positions you're going for, then perhaps as part of your interview planning, you ought to have thought through how you would sell those things. You know, but if you're after a quick frame on that, then generally my answer is going to start by asking them questions. If you want me to sell you a pen, I want to know what your need for a pen is first.
Yeah.
You know, so actually, before I sell you it, before I talk to you about this pen, I want to ask you a few questions about the pens that you use. You know, what's important to you about a pen? What's your need for pens? And then just do a proper sales process on it. But take it the right way. I'm only actually going to do that if the question is absolutely relevant. I prefer not to feed into the ego of an interviewer just for the sake of feeding into their ego that way. And I think if you frame it right, there's a lot more respect from the idea of actually, look, let me demonstrate what I can do for your job instead of just blindly following down the line because you don't know what kind of questions that are relevant. Does that make sense?
Yeah. It makes perfect sense. I've seen several answers to that questions, and I've actually never heard the reply that you outline now. And I think it's brilliant because if you can reframe it as let's say you're applying for a position and they are selling marketing solutions or something. Instead of saying, selling you this pen, which is not relevant at all, I will demonstrate how I would sell your marketing products instead. Like it's a brilliant reply and it's much more relevant. Yeah.
No, absolutely. I suppose the key point in here that I suppose I haven't actually quite said in all of this is like I actually want as much as companies turn around and say this thing about our biggest resource is our people, and interviews are two-way processes, and we want you to know what you're getting into as much as we want to know who you are. Interviews are rarely conducted that way, So, but I actually want you to go into that interview with a kind of mindset. And it goes back to what I was saying right at the beginning, about what happened to me accidentally when I was a teenager. I actually want you to go into that interview with a mindset of I'm good, and I need these guys to demonstrate why I should give them the opportunity to employ me. Now, I don't ever want you to say that. That's a step too arrogant. But actually what I want you to do is get into that mindset and go, well, like if I was the perfect person for their job and I want to give them the opportunity to see that, how would I act? What would I say? What kind of questions would I ask them? And how would I answer questions? If you get into that mindset, then you're going to start doing things wildly differently. And one of the things that I would always urge people to do in interviews is actually think intelligently about what's their purpose behind asking that question. And if it has relevance, then great. Give them the answer to the purpose behind the question rather than the question. If it doesn't have relevance, then challenge them with it. And what would be perfect in that is to turn around and say, that question isn't going to give you what you want. The question that would give you what you want is this one. So I'm going to answer that instead for you, and obviously one way or another, you've prepared for that.
Yeah.
So effectively it gives you a real, I love poor interviewers because it gives you the opportunity to actually tell them the question that they should ask you and then give them that answer instead.
That is brilliant.
Sure.
Okay. Thanks. I think this has been, really, really interesting. A lot of great advice. I hope I can persuade you to do it one more time, another time, with some different questions, perhaps. And I will include a link to your program, NLP for Job Hunters, in below this video and the article that goes with it.
Cool.
So again, thanks a lot, Minttu. I appreciate it.
Absolute pleasure, Lars. Thank you for that. That was it's great talking to you.